Today's quick tip, wood staining. Now, I wish that I had known then what I know now. And if you want to know now instead of waiting until then, well then, keep watching now. This product calls itself a wood finish. It's not a wood finish, it's a wood stain. If you build a project and use this, you're going to want to put a real finish on top, like polyurethane, shellac, or lacquer. But back to the subject at hand. We're talking about wood staining. To keep this explanation simple, I'm going to use one type of wood, pine, and one color stain, dark walnut. When you go to the hardware store, you're going to find a color chart posted near the wood stains. This is going to give you a general idea of what the final color is going to look like on your project. But there's a lot of factors that determine what the final color will actually look like on your piece of wood. Obviously, it depends on what type of wood you're using. Did you sand the wood very smooth or did you leave it a little bit rough? Did you use something called a wood conditioner? This affects the color. Now, how did you apply the stain? Did you give it multiple coats? We're going to test lots of these conditions and I'm going to show you what the difference can be depending on how you prepare the wood. I've got 15 samples of wood and 5 different grits of sandpaper. This one here is 100, 120, 150, 220, and 320. I've prepared the wood samples by sanding each piece 50 times in the direction of the grain. That's 3 samples for each grit of sandpaper. I'm using gloves so that I don't get any oils from my hands onto the wood. On the first 5 samples, using 5 different grits, I apply the walnut stain using a rag. I generously wipe it on, then wipe it off. If you let the stain soak in longer, the tone will be darker than if you wipe it off right away. It's pretty clear that the finer grits on the right side are lighter than the coarser grits on the left side. On the second set of samples, I'll apply the stain the exact same way, only I'll pre-treat the wood using a pre-stain conditioner. You can see the lighter colors here emerging immediately. Slightly lighter with the fine grain, but not quite as dramatic of a variance as the samples where I didn't use a wood conditioner at all. The samples where I did use the pre-conditioner clearly provide a lighter, less blotchy, and more consistent shade of brown. On the third and final set of samples, I used the pre-stain conditioner, similar to the second set of samples, except that I'm going to apply the stain using a brush rather than wiping it off with a rag. The trick to staining with a brush is to apply the stain a little conservatively. Once the stain is applied, dry off the brush on a rag, then go back and forth with the wood grain. If you do this right, you're not going to see any brush strokes. So what conclusions do we draw from today's little experiment? Well, let's take a closer look. The finer sandpaper, like 320 grit, is going to result in a lighter color than 100 grit. This is whether you brush it on or you wipe it off. Brushing on stain instead of wiping it off with the rag will give you a darker tone. Using a pre-stain conditioner will look less blotchy on softer woods, especially pine. Using a pre-stain conditioner will hide a lot of preparation mistakes. No matter what staining technique you use, giving it multiple coats will always give you a darker finish. Good preparation and staining comes with practice and experience. I just wanted you to know how you can get very different tones using the exact same wood and the same color stain. Oh, by the way, you don't need to invest in this pre-stain. You can just use paint thinner or mineral spirits. It'll do just about the same thing. Well, thanks for watching Allie Picked and today's quick tip.